yesterday there was some. I almost felt as if during our conversation with your opponent, it was implied that you are part of the reason why this debate that was supposed to happen tonight, right? Was it tonight?
No. What happened was this is a spectrum debate. So we've agreed to 3 debates, actually 4 if you count the Syracuse Post-Standard editorial board. So we've agreed to 4 debates. One was Spectrum Cable. That was to be done in their news studio in Syracuse with Susan Arbetter, who was the host.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is WSKG and the League of Women Voters. That's down in the southern tier. And then the third one is Nexstar Broadcasting, which owns WUTR here locally, but also has stations in Syracuse markets and the Binghamton market as well. So we agreed to those debates. Earlier this week, Spectrum had reached out to us and said that they have COVID in their Syracuse studio. Someone came down with COVID in their Syracuse studio. So they said, we're canceling the in-person debate, and we can either cancel the debate totally or you can do it virtually. We said, well, we agreed to the Spectrum debate. We'll do the Spectrum debate. If it's virtual, then we'll do it virtual. And they gave us the option of Monday, this coming Monday, to do it. I think it's at 10 a.m., and it's going to be aired later on that night on Spectrum News. And that's what we agreed to. So that's the truth.
Is there because the implication was that you have limited the ability for the two of you to go back and forth and for rebuttal?
No. We're following by the rules that Spectrum has set up and that we both agreed to.
Okay.
There's questions. There's an opening statement, I believe. There's 90-second questions. There's time for rebuttal. Just like any other debate, except it's done virtually.
Okay.
So we received a letter here today, and I'll have you react to it. It's something that you've been asked about before. It's your feelings on law enforcement and a perception that you are anti-law enforcement. I have a letter here that's signed by the Sherrill PBA, Camden Police Department, Camden Police Benevolent Association, Fred Rubinski from Boonville PD, Todd Hood, Madison County Sheriff, Mike Carpinelli, Lewis County Sheriff, Don Hilton, Oswego County Sheriff. It basically says, and I think this was a part of the campaign ads that I'm sure you're aware of, it says that you voted against law enforcement, stripped law enforcement and police agencies of decommissioned surplus gear from the Defense Department, that you voted against the House of Representatives bill to condemn the death of George Floyd that would oppose autonomous zones and efforts to defund police departments.
Again, it's not true. I respect law enforcement 100%. I'm sorry that these particular individuals have fallen for whatever Ms. Tenney is selling them. The fact of the matter is I have introduced legislation to defund cities that defund the police. There's nothing in the bill that I voted for, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which passed on a bipartisan basis, which the Fraternal Order of Police have said that they were heartened by the provisions in the bill. I don't think the largest police union would say that if it was such a bad bill. And there's nothing in that bill that prevents the sale of defensive equipment to law enforcement, such as body armor or first aid kits or communication equipment. So it's unfortunate that Ms. Tenney continues to spread that lie around. But I guess if you tell a lie 1,000 times, someone's going to believe it. So the fact is, I have put in legislation bipartisan. My co-sponsor is Elise Stefanik. Our bill is to punish cities that defund the police. I've actually called for a doubling of the Department of Justice COPS grant, which would add another $350 million to that program to help police departments hire more officers so they can do things like community engagement programs, which everyone says helps improve relationships between departments and the communities that they have that they are serving. Utica's received those grants in the past. They've been very helpful in hiring more officers. So it's a false statement by my opponent, but her campaign is so full of false statements, it's hard to respond to all of them, because the fact of the matter is She doesn't want to talk about her record. Have you seen one commercial that she has run talking about what she's going to do for the people of this district on health care, on jobs, on any of that? Have you seen any commercials like that? You haven't, because she's not talking about that because she doesn't want people to know her record on taking away protections for people with pre-existing conditions like asthma and heart disease and now COVID. She spreads these conspiracy theories, which are just damaging and hurtful to anyone who has suffered or lost a loved one to COVID. So let's talk about the issues. That's what people care about in this district. How are you going to get us through this pandemic? What are you going to do about health care? How are you going to help us get our job back if we lost a job? That's what I want to talk about, and she's free to spread this false information all she wants.
Can I just follow up on one point? This letter says the bill that Brindisi voted for, H.R. 7120, says in part, publicly disseminate online all complaints and disciplinary actions against an officer, even if they were found to be innocent or the charges were unfounded. Let me ask you, it would make sense that if a police officer has been found to have some inappropriate behavior or action on the job, that it be made public. I think a lot of people agree with that. But if somebody makes an allegation that is proven not to be true, or the officer was found to have acted appropriately, why is it appropriate that that be shared with the public?
Well, Jeff, I'm not going to, there's provisions in the bill I agree with. There's provisions I don't agree with. There's, but the point is to get to some kind of a compromise that can actually be passed into law. Again, I'll say that I don't believe the Fraternal Order of Police would say that they were heartened if this was such a bad bill. So does it set up a database to make sure that an officer who is found guilty of committing an act of police brutality is not able to go to another department and do the same thing? Absolutely. However, the bottom line is you have to have some kind of national standards around law enforcement, and we have to recognize that law enforcement is a very dangerous job. We have brave men and women who go to work every day. They deserve the respect. They deserve not to have this issue politicized. And the fact is, I've stood up to people in my own party to put in legislation to punish a city if they defund the police departments. And I've actually called for a doubling of the cops grant. That's my record. And, she can try and distort that all she wants, but the facts are the facts.
I want to ask about, and I received some criticism yesterday. Why did you talk so long about Luke Radel, this high school kid from New Hartford who has a Twitter page, and it seems to be there's a back and forth between he and Claudia Tenney. Well, I didn't talk too long. I asked a question. Actually, Jeff asked the question, and Claudia talked about it for about 8 minutes, at which things were said about the kid, which forced a follow-up for us. That's how these things happen. Then once there are some things that you have to follow up on. And when the kid is called a tracker and he's called a bully, I just want to play a little audio, and I want your comments on this. But when those things are said, it's our responsibility to then have a follow-up question. And I don't think, and that's what makes the interview so long on one simple question. I don't know why this kid is a topic of conversation. He shouldn't be, but it's happening because of the things that she's saying about him. So listen to a little bit of it here.
For many years, as being a member of the media, we strove to make sure that we weren't the newsmakers. We were providing news to the public. And this is what's happened in the age of social media. You have people who grab a camera, and they are the news. They're prima donnas, they're divas. It's all about them. It's all about getting clicks. It's all about getting attention.
You're talking about a junior in high school here.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly another issue with Luke. Is, when we owned our newspaper, I carried $1 million in libel insurance in case somebody wrote a letter to the editor or I missed something on the editorial side, so that we could cover ourselves in case we got sued. And he's not accountable as a 16-year-old. I mean, you're giving him credibility like he's a regular member of the media, and he's held accountable.
I got to tell you, I don't think we're giving him credibility. It became an issue for your campaign. And even watching the video...
Well, you're giving it one... That's one viewpoint. What did you see in the video where he was ambushing and rushing up to people on my campaign and trying to shove a camera in my face?
And I don't want to get into any more of it, but I do want to ask you, is Luke Radel... Are you guys having conversations? And are you giving him questions to ask? Is he a tracker for the Brindisi campaign or for the Democratic Congressional Committee?
No, absolutely not. Look, Luke is he's a fine young man. He's, like you said, a junior in high school. He has a YouTube station. He has covered my events. I've spoken to him. He has covered Ms. Tenney's events. He has been critical of me. He has been critical of her, just as any good journalist would do. Comes from a good family. Again, it's all a distraction. And if I'm a listener sitting back listening to this, I'm thinking to myself, what the heck does this have to do with the problems that I'm facing in my life right now? I mean, we are going through a global pandemic. Over 200,000 people have died. Unemployment in the millions. We got a virus which is starting to pop up again all over the country. Down in Broome County, which I represent, there is another hot spot around the state right now. They've had like 700 cases.
Yep.
And here we go talking about this young man who's trying to cover a political campaign. Let him do his job and answer his questions, just like I do. The fact is, we should be talking about and debating the issues that are important to people in this community, like their health care, like their jobs, like what are our plans for helping to end this public health crisis and get through and try and rebuild the economy. That's what I'm focused on right now. We got this issue where we got to get through this pandemic. We need more funding there for state and local governments. I did a call yesterday with local officials down in the Broome County area just to talk about what are you guys seeing right now, what's going on with your budgets, what kind of layoffs are you looking at, and the situation is dire. Same thing with schools. I did calls with superintendents all last week talking about the 20% cut coming from New York State in education and what that's going to mean for our teachers and support staff. We got to get aid to these communities from Washington. That's what I'm focused on doing right now. We got to make sure that we're, making sure we have health care for people. You have this lawsuit in the Supreme Court that's going to be heard on November 10th to declare the Affordable Care Act unconstitutional. Think if that happens, what protections are going to be gone? 23 million people who now have protections against discrimination from pre-existing conditions. Essential health benefits like maternity care and prescription drug coverage. Now insurance companies can decide, pick and choose what they want to cover people for. Keeping your kid on your insurance plan to your 26th. My opponent, does she support that lawsuit? She voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. She claims she supports pre-existing conditions, but she never voted for any bill to actually protect people with pre-existing conditions, and that's the record she wants to distract from. So let's talk about the issues that people actually care about instead of all these conspiracy theories and who's out to get me and all this other stuff.
Quickly, on court packing, it's something that Joe Biden has not answered. You're an attorney. Should there be more than 9 justices on the Supreme Court?
I think that our Constitution, our system of checks and balances has worked fine for 200 years. I'm fine with where it is right now. I have not seen one single solitary proposal to do any court packing. And again, what we should be talking about is what's at stake in front of the Supreme Court. Yeah. It's health care, it's the climate, it's rolling back all kinds of protections on people who have been discriminated against. So those are things that really are at stake in terms of the Supreme Court and what's on the ballot in this election.
Talking to Congressman Anthony Brindisi, and we are going a little long. One other question, the Supreme Court. Judge Barrett, your thoughts on her testimony and the fact that this is probably going to happen. It looks like it's going to happen before Election Day.
Well, look, I didn't see all the testimony, so I'm not going to comment on everything. I've just read the reports, and it's really the Supreme Court's decision, the Senate's decision. They have to advise and consent on Supreme Court justices, so I'm going to leave it to them.
She seems good, right? I mean, she's solid.
She certainly she has credentials. She's a very intelligent person. I haven't seen her testimony, so I'm not going to comment on each aspect of it.
Yeah.
But it looks from from everything I've read that she'll be confirmed at some point next week.
Would you just to follow up on Bill's question? Would you vote to expand the court? I know you said it's fine the way it is right now, but would you vote to expand it?
I haven't seen a proposal to do that, Jeff.
Okay. And then also, there was much made this week of the Pelosi-Wolf blitzer back and forth on the second stimulus. $1.8 trillion. I don't know all the details. I won't try to parse them out with you, but do you know about that package? If you were presented with it, would you support it?
I have not seen, the White House has not given the details of what's in their $1.8 trillion package. It's unfortunate. The big sticking point has been state and local funding and trying to get aid to our state and localities so they don't have to lay off public servants like cops and firefighters and nurses and teachers. And the Senate has been just resistant to do that. And Mitch McConnell, who has said it's a blue state bailout, it's not a bailout because you can't use the money for any prior budget issues. It's very limited as to how you can use the money. It's only for COVID-related expenses or loss of revenue. You know, the county here, Oneida, can point to the loss of revenue that they've had over the last 6 to 7 months because of the drop in sales tax. That is what the money can be used for. Otherwise, you're going to have schools cutting teachers and support staff. You're going to have counties and city government laying off public safety and infrastructure and other essential services. And McConnell again yesterday said he's not going to do he won't even do the president's $1.8 trillion. So, until we have the Senate on board to do something, then this is an issue that is going to continue to be discussed. But you have the White House and you have the House who are talking every day. I think that's a good thing. And it's unfortunate that McConnell, just yesterday, shot down any proposal. He said, we're not doing the White House's $1.8 trillion. So we're kind of back to square one here. They want to spend a lot of time confirming judges when you got people who are losing their job, losing their homes, being kicked out of their apartments, who are struggling to pay the bills. We got to get aid to the American people right now, and the Senate needs to get on board and do something here. It seems like the president's saying go big. The House is ready to do a bill. Let's get the Senate on board.
Staying with that stimulus money has to come to the municipalities and the school districts and the hospitals, it seems, and the airlines. I mean, we just keep going on and on. I don't think there's an endless supply of money, but what do you propose for schools that are looking at a very big cut in aid at a time when they're spending more than they ever have because of the virus?
Well, what I proposed, I'm part of the Problem Solvers Caucus in the House, which is 25 Democrats, 25 Republicans. We have introduced what we're calling our March to Common Ground. It's a bipartisan framework on the next COVID-19 relief package. To get 50 members of the House equally split between Republicans and Democrats to agree on anything, I think is a good thing. But we compromised and we put this out there to try and get leaders back to the negotiating table, which they have now. In our proposal, we have called for $100 billion in aid to schools K through 12, additional aid for higher education. And what I want to see is I want that money to go directly to the school districts. I don't want it going to the governor and Albany first and then rely on the state to distribute it to the schools. It's got to go directly to the school districts, and it has to be flexible. They have to be able to use that money for whatever their needs are, whether it's hiring staff or keeping staff, paying for COVID-related expenses, things like that. My worry is if that money were to go to Albany first, you send $1 to Albany, the school's going to end up with 50 cents.
Right.
We got to send that money right to the school districts with no strings attached. The other thing I've been calling for is, Betsy DeVos, our lovely education secretary, has made this decision that they're going to go through with standardized testing this year, which I think is ludicrous. You have kids learning from home or in a hybrid fashion right now, and you're going to force these kids to take standardized tests later on this year, and then force teachers to be evaluated based upon that. That's ridiculous. So I've asked the education department to suspend that until we get through this pandemic, because I don't think we should be testing kids, standardized testing kids right now when they're all learning a little differently.
I have a couple of, are you okay for a few more minutes? I have a couple of people on the line with a question,
Sure.
And I wanted to ask you, if reelected, what can you do from a federal level in terms of maybe potential contracts for Remington Arms? It looks like there's some promise there. It's going to be a rough run for a lot of workers. There will be layoffs, it looks like. They're going to be a smaller company, at least in the beginning. How can you help Remington?
Well, I've reached out to the new ownership. I hope that they contact us back. I want to sit down with them and find out what their needs are and how I can be helpful. I've been in constant communication with the union, and have offered my assistance there. Look, Remington it makes firearms. I sit on the Armed Services Committee. Let's see how we can. I want to make sure that our Department of Defense, just like I did with the Spoons Act, is buying American-made goods. We have great manufacturing here in this country, and I want to make sure that all of our federal agencies are not relying on goods from overseas. So let's buy more American-made goods. I'd love to see the military purchasing more from Remington. Let's see how that can happen.
All right. Alan in Herkimer with a question. Alan, you're on with the congressman.
Yes, Anthony, I have a question. I know there's a bill in the Senate for the tax deferral the presidential tax deferral executive order that he put on. Was optional for employees, and also the DOD. The president or the DOD didn't make it optional. He made it mandatory. Do you know anything about what's going on? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you talking about the president's proposal to defer payroll taxes?
The Social Security tax deferral.
I'm not familiar with a bill. We could always follow up with you if you want to leave your information. I'll make sure someone from my staff follows up with you. But I can say in general, I'm not. That proposal has been met with bipartisan condemnation because what it's going to do is it's going to weaken the Social Security Trust Fund. It's going to weaken Medicare if that happens right now.
All right, Alan, I'm going to give you to Andrew and get your phone number, and somebody from Anthony's office will give you a call. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Stand by. And all right, wrapping it up. We hear a lot about this, and we're deluged. We're just bombarded with commercials that are negative commercial after negative commercial. So there's someone out there right now, I've been told, that is undecided. Let's say it's one person out there that is undecided between you and your opponent. Based on your record, based on what you're going to do going forward, win them over. What do you say to that person?
Well, I would say that, look, in my time being in office here, I've always showed up. I've listened to the people of this community. I have fought against powerful special interests, whether it's cable giants, whether it's pharmaceutical companies, on behalf of the people of this district. And despite divided government, I've been successful in getting 6 of my bills to the president's desk, 4 of which he's already signed into law, 2 of which are awaiting his signature, on important issues for our community, like veteran mental health issues, making sure that they have access to suicide prevention services, making sure that our military is buying American-made goods like flatware, which is made in Sherrill, New York. I've passed a bill to repeal health insurance taxes that are on employer-sponsored plans. Those have all been signed into law. And I may not be the member of Congress that gets the most national attention or has the most Twitter followers, but I'm getting things done for the community, and I'm showing up and listening, and I hope people who have reached out to our office, whether you support me or not, I'm going to represent you just as hard going forward here as we've done over the last 2 years. I'm honored to serve the community I grew up in and I love, and I would ask them for their support again for another 2 years in Congress.
All right, Congressman Anthony Brindisi, thank you for your time, and we're getting close, but we will do it again. Thank you.
18 days.
18 days. 18 days. And then another 18 to 20 to figure out who actually wins, I'm afraid.
Exactly.